Well, what have we here, my vicarious volcanic city enjoyers? Welcome back, one and all. Last episode, we really got our volcanic city base off the ground, and in this episode, we are going to be putting it to use and also expanding it substantially. Let's get started. We're actually going to be beginning today with a bit of research into deep drilling. The volcanic regions are known for their overabundance of stone and rare earth metals, and so of course we want to get our toes dipped into that hot water, if you know what I mean. While researching this new technology, we're also going to be setting up our drilling rig platforms just next to our warehouse. That way we're not too far away from any storage areas. Although since we're going to have a dedicated mining area, I think I'll work on a dedicated storage area too. Before we do that though, we finished up our deep drilling research and we would start building our proper platforms ready for use. Now, as of right now, I believe we're only going to be getting stone, not any rare earth minerals, unfortunately, but this stone can actually be used to expand our city, as we can actually use this material as a substitute for steel in our space-based walls and what have you we've been using, but basically it's going to be great. As we started our mining operations over the volcano, though, we ended up having a psychic ship landing just to the north of us. This damn thing is gonna drive us all crazy and mad and cause us to kill each other if we don't get rid of it, and in a hurry. So we mounted up a little fighting force and we started prepping our defenses. Thanks to our new deep drill mining, we have plenty of stone as mentioned, and we could use that stone to go about building embrasures without the fear of wasting any. Embrasures being a much better mode of defense compared to sandbags is exactly why we use them. This meant that the mechanoids would have a much harder time shooting through the small slits in the stone to try to kill us. Though they did get lucky on an occasion or two, we ended up becoming victorious by the end of this little ordeal. Now that we've murdered its mechanical defenders, we could destroy the ship chunk, and now nobody will be going crazy and killing each other. At least not due to the ship, that is. But we got rid of one problem and still had to take care of another because we had a great big blight, a gigantic one, I might add, on our entire crop field, which we would end up cutting out and replanting. So that's good, right? Yes, but something that wasn't was a nearby volcanic eruption that was showering these lands with volcanic rock and also large spews of lava pools. Well, no one said it would be easy living here and building a community here. Actually, everyone said it would be the exact opposite, so I guess we got what we paid for. You know who else got what they paid for? Our very first guest. I think we had about 5 or 6 researchers from the Outlanders who were actually renting some rooms from us here, and were just kind of studying the volcanic activity that as of late had been showering the area with lava and stuff, as we seen a moment ago. These researchers weren't just going to rent rooms from us though, they were actually going to be living here for a certain period of time, and as such, they were actually contributing to the city itself by cooking meals and cleaning around the place. It was pretty nice. It definitely makes this feel like more of a partnership, a research treaty or something, than just some tourism. Now then, back to the more industrial parts of our city. As we saw a little bit ago, we ended up building some drilling rigs to go down deep underneath the volcanic lake to get out stone and whatnot, but we do need a place to store all that, so not only are we going to be building a place where we can use some electric stone cutter tables to effectively and efficiently make stone blocks, but we're also going to have some very large storage crates to store chunks as well as said blocks. Now, adding on to that, I thought that this might be a great place for us to also go about building some more lava generators. We might as well. Again, once we end up wanting to, we can use this stone to substitute for steel for our bases and our homes here and whatever else we end up building structure-wise in the city, but if we want to, we could also just sell them to a bunch of bulk goods traders. It could be one of our main exports, who knows. For our next research project, we're working on orbital tech. I know, a little bit strange, especially since I specifically said that we weren't going to be working on the grav ship just yet, or anytime soon really, but I do want some of the armors and suits that come with this research for our people. While we're working on that, we're also going to be building a comms console so we can finally start doing some trading with those bulk goods traders that we were talking about, as well as any other that may be in orbit. And likewise, we would end up building some of our beacons. We definitely don't want to limit our clientele and or trade partners to the tribes of the planet or even just the Outlanders now, do we? No, we don't. Speaking of bulk goods traders, we ended up having one not too long after that, at which point we would end up buying plenty of plasteel and selling some of our obsidian and gravlite panels, as we didn't really need either of those at the moment. The plasteel would prove to be invaluable to us, as we would immediately put it to good use building 2 brand new lava generators. If you remember last episode, one of these generates up to 4,000 watts of power, so needless to say, the 5 we have, I'm not good at math, but we should be good on power for a while. Now, with all this power generation, I think it only makes sense that we would have a proper place to go about storing all the excess power. And sure, we have a lot of batteries in our warehouse, but we ended up building a power plant and storage facility in its own section of the city, mostly for safety reasons, but also to keep things neat and tidy as can be. You'll notice that we ended up putting a fire foam popper that we had right in the middle in case of any fires, although that really shouldn't be an issue, as we also have quite a few fuses in case there is an overcharge or anything like that, ensuring that the city's power should stay on furthermore, regardless of any negative effects of a zzz or something of that sort. And with that, the expansion of our city is going quite nicely this episode already, but I grow bored of only expanding the base. I think our fine soldiers need a bit of adventure in their life. We have detected a grav core at a frozen ancient terraformer. Now, there are many reasons that I've decided to send some people out on this quest. It'd be interesting to see how they perform in an environment that's completely opposite to where we live at the moment. Grav cores are worth a lot of money, and we can also use it for a grav ship once we end up building one. And also, these facilities always have some goodies. So, all that being said, we're sending out a small team of 3. They'll be taking the old Sticky Willy out on this little expedition, as the destination's quite far away, and it should have a more than sufficient cargo space for anything they need to bring back. Upon their arrival, they were immediately confronted with a very foreboding, intimidating, gigantic glacier right in the middle of a non-frozen hellscape. My guess is that the terraformer is right in the middle. The 3 of our men would waste absolutely no time mining through the thick sheets of ice and getting straight to the nougaty center of this little nugget. Needless to say, but I'll say it anyways, the facility was indeed in the center of the glacier, and we were already finding some useful supplies like medicine. We also right away were confronted with many a century drone, ancient robotic protectors of this facility. Thanks to our minigun, though, as well as other rifles, we had very little issue destroying every single one that we came into contact with, along with some of their ancient turrets. As our exploration of this decrepit place continued, we eventually found the terraformer, blasted the absolute shit out of it, and now we're ready to take our grav core back home, along with many other things like a couple of maps that will no doubt lead us to new adventures and new useful items and resources, as well as some medicine as previously discussed, gravlite panels, food components, blah 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 blah, and the rest of our time spent here at ye old terraformer glacier and compound was going to be filled with us filling up our Sticky Willy ship with all the new items that we had collected before finally arriving back home safe and sound. Now comes the less fun part of trying to haul all of this in. We also ended up getting some mining chargers. Not really sure what we're going to use them for, but I always like to have them on hand just in case. Sometimes I do be feeling a little explosive. By the time we finally arrived back home and got everything hauled in, we also finished up our research into orbital tech, now allowing us to build many of those different types of suits and armors I was talking about earlier. But before we get started on that, I feel like we need a proper workshop, something that we really haven't had this entire time. Well, we did before we moved out here onto the Volcano lake, but you know what I mean. Again, built within a very close proximity to our warehouse and all of our storage crates. That way, making these new suits and armors won't take long at all. And as you can see, with Elijah here, our leader being the very first to wear his new prestige outfit, a grab ship captain's outfit. Now, I will say, of course, again, I don't give a shit about the ship necessarily, but I think that this looks very dapper and very royal and fitting for the leader of a volcano city, and thus why he and many of our other fine folks will be donning this type of apparel. A few things I want to clarify. For one, I have edited the apparel layers, that way we can still wear our flak vest and coats with these if we so choose to, which we probably will for protective purposes, and the prestige apparel requires a lot of gold. Now, luckily for us, this isn't exactly an issue, because the hot and hellish region in which we live is very rich with these different types of rare minerals, although we are going to run out of gold and other materials to mine at some point, so we'll be buying that too once we get a big enough population. Since we're working on everyone's certified looks here for our volcanic city, we're also going to be planting some boxes full of dyes, that way we can turn them to the appropriate colors. While waiting on our new dyes to grow though, we would work on yet another uniform, with this being a prestige suit for our Lady of the Lake, Tail. Such a beautiful, happy couple with a beautiful empire that is expanding needs beautiful garments, if I do say so myself, and I think we've accomplished that for them here today. Next on the agenda is going to be mortars, as I want to start focusing on our defenses. Now, I will say though, most of our research projects thus far, I have been letting them solely work on those for a lot of this, and I'm going to start actually focusing on construction and stuff again in terms of our defenses, with many more turrets and spike traps and anything else that we can throw out there, because we haven't been attacked in quite a while. Which, if you know RimWorld, then you know means Randy is cooking up an absolute shitstorm to throw right in our face, and that's why I'm putting such a high priority on replacing all of our sandbags with some proper embrasures and yada yada. Thanks to the fairly extensive mod list that we're using throughout this series, we do have many different types of modded defenses that I plan on implementing as well, but for the time being, until we get that type of stuff researched, this will have to do. Looks like we'll be putting it to the test right away, as we have a group of pigskin pirates coming to skin us. Worst of all, perhaps, is the fact that one of them, by the name of Weir, I believe, is the niece of Tail and Elijah. I was a bit dumbfounded by this because, well, they're pigskins. It would seem that someone in their family tree screwed the pooch, or I suppose in this case, the hog. That was a bad joke, sorry. Regardless though, this is serious business, and we were attempting to rush to our defenses, but before we could mount up at our embrasures, the pigskins were pouring through our line. Initially, this wasn't too bad, as they were hitting many of our spike traps, but as they continued, especially those wielding and throwing grenades, we ran out of spike traps and we were getting very close to death, within inches in many cases. Thankfully, after pouring on a sweltering amount of bullets into many of their soldiers and killing them, those last final few decided to flee. I think only about one or so got away. Okay, so maybe our defensive upgrades weren't doing all that hot so far, and maybe we could use a few more traps, and I'm not just talking about spike traps. I'm talking about some more complex ones that would actually come in handy during scenarios like this. As we were cleaning up the rubble and debris from the fight though, I did notice that Tail's niece had ended up dying during the whole kerfuffle. Not really much we could do there, she was trying to kill us, but now that she's dead, I suppose we could at least give her a proper funeral. She was family after all. Elijah, Baby Mock, and Tail would all be here for the funeral processions, and that was about it. Young Baby Mock didn't quite understand as to why his cousin was trying to murder him, nor why she looked like a hoglin, but he was still there. Speaking of which, we need to give young Baby Mock a proper name. Luckily, last episode I asked you fine folks for a proper name for the young lad, and we now have the name of Vulcan. Baby Mock is still a good nickname for him, but we'll try to call him by his first name nowadays. And we actually have a couple of folks who mention this, with that being J.E. Clockwork 3058 and Sir Ignacio, both recommending Vulcan. Maybe spelled a little bit differently between your two comments, but but it would seem that you both had the same idea for the most part. Thank you guys ever so much, and thank you to everyone who suggested names for the young lad. I will say I also really like the idea from you, J.E. Clockwork, about the baby's name being from mythology, as I feel like this city and our faction here would probably put a lot of importance on mythology, given their industrious nature. Speaking of their nature, and also kind of their culture, our dyes are finally grown, and with that we're actually going to be going and dyeing Elijah and Tails armor. This is something that we're going to be doing for everyone as well at some point, so I suppose I'll save the grand reveal for then. We're also going to be doing some trading with a combat supplier in orbit, purchasing some Hellcat rifles, and just as well some incinerators. Basically just some flame-based weaponry, anything fire. Probably a bit obvious, but I think it's quite fitting given our location. I like to think that having a city over top of a volcano and or a lava lake here, where volcanic activity is just par for the course, that we would almost make it part of who we are, not only as a city, but as a people, and as our culture, as I was briefly discussing, and thus as to why we would use this weaponry. I also like the idea that perhaps we even refuel our weaponry with some of the flames from the lake, or maybe that's some type of rumor or something that's started. But you don't want to hear about those nerdy-ass details, you want to know what the hell I'm building. Well, my friends, this is going to be yet another great addition to the industrial part of the city. This one is going to be a ranch and or some type of animal breeding facility, I guess you could say. You see, now that we're going intergalactic with our trade, I feel that it's only appropriate that we would have specialized items that we'd be selling to these traders given our position here in this region. And there are some very special animals that we could grow for their meat to sell. Perhaps one of the most exclusive animals that we have access to are these large lava snails, which, as mentioned, are pretty humongous and thus give off quite a bit of meat. We know firsthand because in episode 1 we ate and survived off them for quite some time. And thanks to the incredible animals and taming skill of our furry friend, it was actually extremely easy to immediately tame 2 of these little critters. Little being sarcastic, I suppose. One a male and one a female, and they would start breeding like no other right off the bat, wasting no time, which I guess is good for our operation here. I don't mean to be that guy, but you guys love naming things in our series, and I love having you guys name things in our series, so if you have any names for our snails that we currently have and that we will be giving birth to very shortly, please feel free to leave those in the comment section down below, and thank you in advance. We would also finally finish our research into mortars after putting it on the back burner for several days, and now freeing us up to go about making flak armor. Normally, we would just go and find some off some corpses before they turn into corpses, or we would just purchase it, but since we have so many resources here, we might as well make our own. While we're researching that, we're also going to go ahead and add in 2 of our mortars. That way, we have them ready to go at a moment's notice, and you'll notice that I put a military crate, which had to be swapped out for a wooden crate, because for some reason I couldn't put shells in the military one, whatever, right in the center here. That way there's an easy access to shells at all times as well for a simple defense plan. Ready 24/7 to drop some burning shells on some heads. Now, we've done a lot of building this episode, and you might notice that the western and the northern parts of the city here are the more industrial parts of the city, while our more centralized southern, I guess right now, and eastern parts are mostly our residential and also our kind of tourist rentable areas for scientists and things of that nature, right? Well, just as with any city, you are going to have the good parts of it, that if you're trying to stay there even for a couple nights, it's going to be quite expensive, and on the other side you'll have the bad parts, like right here on our industrial side with much less defenses, and not actually on the volcanic lake itself, where we are going to be building some very cheap rentable housing. These mobile bases are quick and simple and easy to make, and since they're technically mobile homes, I guess you could consider this a really cheap trailer park. Although the inside is still pretty nice because we want everyone to to enjoy their stay here, they will have to bunk with some other folks, making the quality not so high. No pun intended. Immediately after this construction was completed, we finished that research into flak armor, and we would waste no time going about making many a vest for every single person, even those who are wearing their vac suits. As mentioned earlier, I did edit those layers so we have that doubled up protection. Once we had everyone in their uniforms, we also dyed those uniforms to a nice red and black. That way they could somewhat match our glorious leaders. I think a very uniform looking, well, uniform is exactly what we would have here. And obviously the red, yellow, and black sticking with our themes and colors of fire, along with our weapons, which now everyone has, being Hellcat rifles, incinerators, and even Molotov cocktails down to our smallest little soldier. Yes indeed, even young baby Vulcan here is ready for a good fight. Not really though, because he would get punted like a football, but you know what I mean. Anywho though, we are actually going to start working on the research into hunter drones. Thanks to the mods that I have installed, this doesn't just unlock hunter drones, this also actually unlocks many different types of drone traps as well as packs, but we'll build some of those in a second. As for right now, I want to give credit where credit is due to Sir Ignacio and the Grim Jack from CPT for giving me the wonderful idea of instilling fire and lava and volcanoes and just everything like that into the culture of this city, this faction, this community, and into the hearts and minds of our people here. This is such a good idea. I can't believe I hadn't even considered it without you guys having to give me a nudge in the right direction, but that's why I love you all ever so much. And thank you to everyone who suggested this. I'm sure there's plenty of other people, and I just didn't get to see those in the comments. I've been not sleeping so great lately, so I haven't checked all the comments as fast as I normally do. I apologize. Now you might be asking yourself, Rat Daddy, why did you just leave Elijah's old armor and cape lying on the ground? Somebody could use that for protective purposes over top their flak jacket, and you would be right, but I am actually waiting on the young Vulcan to grow big enough to fill his father's shoes, or in this case, his father's armor. Speaking of children and the next generation, though, our snails have already had 2 babies, which is pretty incredible because it doesn't seem like it's been very long at all that we've had them. I've also decided to start planting some red hot chili peppers to add to their kibble. I think it'll give their snail meat a nice spicy flavor, complementing our signature style. We finally finished up our final research project for this episode, being the hunter drones, and as mentioned, I'm not really all that concerned with the hunter drones, as their explosions would probably damage our spike traps more than anything, so we actually started building some wasp drone traps as well as sentry drone traps. Essentially, the next time our enemies walk through this area, they're going to activate 3 little drones with a shotgun for a hand that will immediately start attacking them as they're attempting to dodge the bullets from our turrets, as well as not step on a spike trap, all the while being chased down by our wasp drones. We also immediately started the production of a couple of the sentry drone backpacks, meaning that 2 of our fine folks here can throw down a little automated helper anytime they need. But my friends, I think I'm going to go ahead and call the episode here for today. We've put a heavy focus on a lot of our industrial side of the city and also the culture of our people, something that I want to get established early on like this in its own dedicated episode before we kind of start moving on to the more tourist attractions and things like that throughout the city, as well as our gigantic lava snail farm and perhaps even a volcanic mega prison with just a little something on the drawing board. But all this and more next time. Of course, though, I can't go without thanking you all ever so much for watching today's episode, as well as for all your wonderful suggestions. This episode has been really fun. Like I mentioned, I haven't gotten a lot of sleep lately, so I apologize if I seem a little off. I need some rest, but, you know, with the suggestions and stuff provided in this episode, especially for the culture and stuff like that, as I mentioned earlier, incredible, absolutely incredible, and I love the idea. A very simplistic idea, and yet so complex all at the same time. It's just a chef's kiss, right, onto the gigantic volcano city. So thank you guys once again, and thank you all once again for watching. I love you guys, and I will see you next time. Goodbye.